All right, I'm just going to run through the rest of the undercard fights from this egg versus cheese show on the weekend. So it kicked off with Dalton Smith, and he managed to knock out Nathan Bennett in the 5th round. Now, what struck me straight away, and this was the first time I think I'd seen either of these two. First time I can remember seeing either of these two anyway. And what struck me is how similar their styles were. Like Dalton Smith and Nathan Bennett were almost a mirror image of each other for most of the fight. Dalton Smith was the sharper of the two, but just stylistically, the way they shaped up, their stances, even their builds, it was all very, very similar. But Smith was the sharper. He had the better boxing brain. And as the rounds progressed, he started to show his superiority. Very, very relaxed, Dalton Smith. He's got a nice style, very relaxed, can fight coming forward, can fight going backwards, picks his shots very well, he's got good eyes. So, yeah, I was quite impressed with what I saw from him. He's currently 6-0 with 5 KOs. Nathan Bennett, more fights, but he ended up getting clocked with a tremendous right hand. The knockout really came from nowhere. You know, I was just fixing myself something to eat, I turned around and then bang! Poor Nathan Bennett was on the canvas and that's all she wrote. So a real good one-punch knockout by Dalton Smith. So yeah, I liked the fight. I liked the performance. It was good boxing. Then we had Jordan Gill, and he beat Reese Bellotti over 10 rounds. Wasn't the most enthralling fight I've ever seen. You know, he calls himself the Thrill, Jordan Gill. It rhymes with his name. But I can't say it was the most, and he looks quite a lot different to this now. He's got like a funny style afro and all kinds of things going on Jordan Gill right now. So yeah, it wasn't the most enthralling fight I've seen, but you know, it was all right. It was a relatively, do I want to say competitive? I mean, Bellotti came to try and win, but he didn't make it particularly close. You know, it was what it was. It wasn't, let's just say it wasn't like a total one-sided beatdown. That's what I can say about the fight. I've covered the Wardley fight in a separate video. So I'll move on to the James Tennyson, Gavin Guinfight. You know, Tennyson, he's been around a long time now. You know, can punch a bit, moving up in weight. It wasn't a particularly entertaining fight as far as I'm concerned because of the fact that Gavin Gwynne just had no power at all in his punches. He was tough, he was trying hard. But there was only one guy in there that could really crack an egg, and that was Tennyson. So there was, yeah, there was moments when Gwynne's work rate and stuff like that, you thought maybe if he can land some body shots, he might be able to hurt Tennyson to the body or, you know, overwhelm him in the second half of the fight. But for the most part, it felt like there was an air of inevitability about the way this fight was going. Because as I say, there's only one guy that actually had any power here, and that was Tennyson. And obviously he managed to get the job done with a TKO in the 6th round. So yeah, that's the best of the rest, or the complete rest of the undercard. What am I looking at here? Okay, this is the PBC show. I haven't actually seen this show yet, so I'm going to try and track down these fights and watch them if I can. And then I'll do a review of that card as well. But as far as the Eddie Hearn card, the Matchroom Fight Camp, episode 1, if you will, it was a decent card. The main event especially, I really, really enjoyed. You know, it's always good when the main event turns out to be the best fight on the card. You know, because you can have a great undercard, but if you get to the main event and it's anticlimactic, then you just leave the event with an anticlimactic feeling. You know, even though there were great fights on the undercard, when the main event doesn't deliver, you're like, if only the main event had delivered the way the undercard did. Yeah. But with this particular card, the undercard was, you know, it was cool. The Dalton Smith fight was a good fight. You know, James Tennyson did his thing. Fabio Wardley had a nice stoppage, but the main event was real good. The cheese versus the egg versus cheese, real good. As I say, I've covered that in a separate video. Now, in terms of the presentation, I did a poll on my YouTube channel about the presentation of this show with the pyrotechnic display and Eddie Hearn's mansion in the background and all the lights and what have you, the views of London in the background, the drone camera that was flying around and whatnot. Yeah, you could tell they spent a lot of money and a lot more money on the production than any of the other promoters doing boxing shows at the moment have done. 100%. The production value was high for Matchroom Fight Camp. No question about it. Now, Eddie Hearn said that they wouldn't add crowd noise, but they did add crowd noise. They didn't have like cheering, screaming crowds, but they had like just a minimalist ambient hum, like chattering voices. That's what they had on the soundtrack, at least, you know, from the stream I was watching. Yeah, I watched it on the stream. They had like chattering voices. I would have preferred it personally if they didn't have any crowd noise at all. Maybe some other people disagreed. Maybe they liked the chattering voices in the background on the Sky Sports broadcast. What else was there to talk about with regards to the production? Yeah, there was the crowd noise I would have preferred without. The pyrotechnics, I talked about that. The lights and all that kind of business. The drone. There was something else I was thinking to talk about just a second ago, but it's gone from my mind. Oh yeah, the music. So when they're introducing the fighters, when they're in the ring, they've got this like music that starts up to kind of build into a crescendo for when they call the fighter's name. I didn't like that music. You know, maybe if they'd chosen better music, I would have liked it better. But it just sounded rubbish. It wasn't good. They need to ditch that music for next time, in my opinion. Yeah, get rid of that silly music where you're building up to a crescendo when you read the fighter's name. No. And on top of that, why did they put David Diamante in the corner by the steps? And he wasn't even lit. You know, like everybody else was like lit really nicely. They had Johnny Nelson and Anna Woolhouse in this little enclosure and they were on seats and they all looked very polished and nicely lit, you know, nice lighting and all that kind of stuff. But Diamante, the MC, he was like over by the steps. He wasn't properly lit. The darker it got, I think they stopped even filming him because they didn't have enough lights on him. He'd literally be in the dark. And the guy didn't even have a seat. Or maybe he did. Maybe he walked to a seat in between fights. But he was just like stood over there by the steps looking dark and dingy in the corner, you know? Like if you're going to have an MC, I think you should make a feature of the MC. Put lights and pyrotechnics around the MC too. Because it was just a weird juxtaposition from the lights and the pyrotechnics for the fighters. And then this dark and dingy corner with David Diamante. It didn't work. So put some light on Diamante next time, Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, because it just looked odd what you guys did with him. Put some light on him. Yeah, he's a flamboyant looking character with his dreadlocks and his big beard he's got now, right? So turn that into something. Make that look spectacular as well. If, you know, spectacular is what you're after. So those are my thoughts on the show overall and the undercard, the other fights in the undercard, which I didn't cover in the previous videos. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What did you feel about the Matchroom show, the fights, the presentation, etc. It's Ham and I'm out.